Hello everybody, welcome to the latest video. This one is going to be about Microsoft Excel and using it to be able to help you with some sort of maths problems, or it can be used for a number of different things like organization and setting things out. But today it's going to be used for a couple of little math problems which I found in a little interesting book that I bought. And it's Alice in Wonderland themed. So we're going to do a couple of questions and I'll show you how Excel can be used to your benefit to help you with these sorts of questions. And also I'm going to show you another resource where I can double check to see how accurate it was. So the first question in this little Alice in Wonderland themed puzzle book was something along the lines of there was things that could make Alice bigger and smaller. There was this potion that said drink me on the bottle, and when she drinks it she becomes 2/3 of her height, and there's a little mouse hole, I guess, like a little archway, which is 5 centimeters high, and she needs to try to get through that. Every time she takes a sip of the potion she becomes 2/3 of her height, and it said what her starting height was. So to summarize that question, 120 centimeters at the start, that's her normal height. Each sip of this potion makes her 2/3 of her current height. Obviously very important information. And the question was, how many sips until she is less than 5 centimeters tall? So, using Excel to try to figure that out, we write down what her starting height was. (120 centimeters). And then we'll have the number of sips. So I'll write number of sips. And we'll obviously start with 1, 2, and then at this point Excel was smart enough to figure out how many sips, or consecutive numbers. Do Control A, select everything and center it so it looks a little bit nicer. And here we go. So now here we get an opportunity to write a formula. Now what I'm going to write is I'm going to write equals and cell above times 2/3, because that's what 2/3 is. You multiply by 2 and you divide by 3. And because as per BODMAS or BEDMAS, whichever acronym you end up using, division and multiplication are seen as one and the same, in that you just go from left to right. You don't pick one in front of the other. They're in the same little group. You just do them as you read it, from left to right. So I don't need any brackets. And there we go. After 1 sip, she'll be 80 centimeters tall. And then I can just cycle this down as far as I need until I get to 5 centimeters. And here we go. We have reached a number less than 5 centimeters, and it's 8 total sips. So my answer was 8. Now, the thing is, obviously we could work this out on paper doing the same thing, or with a calculator doing the same thing, but it's not the mathematically correct way to do it. But how would we calculate it mathematically? Well, using a great website, wolframalpha.com, where I'd certainly encourage paying for it if you're a fan of more complicated sorts of maths, and it gives you work solutions for a lot of things. It's really excellent, but we'll just show you what it can do for here. So we started off at 120 centimeters, and then we're multiplying it by 2/3, but we don't know how many times we're going to do that. So we'll do to the power of, which is that symbol there. So shift, for me it's shift and 6 to get that up arrow, x amount of times it's going to be multiplied by 2 to the power of 3. And we're going to make that less than 5 and see how many times that will take. We also need to write solve for x so it knows what it's trying to do. I press enter. You give it a couple of seconds and it gives you an answer which I can't really use. But then I can press approximate form and it tells us roughly what the answer should be. And it tells us 7.83 is the approximation that it gives. And if we have a look at the answer that I got, it was between 7 and 8. And 8 obviously has taken us a little bit past 5 centimeters, but that's what we needed. We needed a whole number. So it has to be greater than 7.8. It was 8. Just to show how accurate this is as well, and show how accurate my Excel is, let's say if I go 6, how many times how much smaller would I have been after 6 attempts? And again, it gives me the exact result as a fraction. And it gives me the approximation, 10. So after 6 times, you end up being 10.53 centimeters. And that's exactly what I've got. 10.53498, 10.5349. We've obviously rounded up with Excel. Which, again, well, sorry, it would have rounded up over here. If I then go 7 times, we're expecting to see about 7.02, 7.02. And then 8 times, we're expecting it to be 4.68. And it's 4.68. So that shows you the utility of Wolfram. It's obviously extremely good and can be used for a multitude of different reasons. So that's the first question. It's showing you how easy it can be to solve that very first question. We'll cycle across a little bit now, and we'll do another. So this next question can be summarized as, there's 4 people at dinner table and there's carrot cake. And the 4th person wants some carrot cake, but this is what happened. The first person eats half the number of slices that there are and then takes 2. The second person takes half the remaining number of slices and then takes another 2. And the third person eats half the remaining number of slices and then takes another 2. And when it comes to the 4th person's turn, there are no slices left. So I'm going to show you how you can use Excel to possibly figure something like this out, as well as coming up with a more logical approach, because this obviously is mathematically based, but it's not really that tricky. So we can have a part here where we're saying our guess. So I'll call that, I'll say our guess, and we'll highlight it yellow to show that this is where we're going to be guessing what the number is. Now, it did say every time it's halving the number of slices and then taking 2. That happens 3 times. I'll paste it over here, that way I know exactly what's going on. So I can put in any number here. So I'll just put in, actually I'll save my guess for a second, but I'm going to do this formula. So equals the cell above divided by 2 and then minus 2. So that's after the first person has eaten. And then we'll do the same again for the second person and third person, and we'll cycle that formula down. And let's have a guess of 100. There's 100 slices. After the first person has half and takes 2, goes down to 48, second person 22, third person 9. That's too high. We're supposed to end up with 0 slices left. So we can just keep guessing until we get to the number required. Still too high, still too high, still too high, too low. And then you just keep going until it gets to 0. Assuming your formula is right, you will end up finding 0. Now we also could have approached this in the opposite way of, so I'll delete that formula now. And the opposite way of doing that, of course, would be looking at what we've been doing every time and then just do it the other way around. So we're taking 2 for, is the last thing we'll do. We're going to do the opposite of that first, plus 2. And then we're halving afterwards the number of slices. So we're going to be multiplying by 2, because halving, of course, is dividing by 2. So now let's do that. So we'll just swap third and first, like so, and then we'll set our formula. Now when we've got nothing in here, it reads it as 0. If you feel more comfortable, you can put a 0 there anyways. So 0 is what we're trying to get to. So we've got to do how much is left at the end. So I'll change this now to slices left at the end, which we know is 0. And we're going to do that cell plus 2 and then multiplied by 2, but we need to have the addition in brackets because normally division and multiplication will come first, so that will interfere with it if we don't have the brackets. We put that down, and again it gave us the answer we got before, 28, which shows that we've done it correct. We've got consistency in our method. And now to just show you how we would have been able to do that just from looking at the question and using a little bit of common sense and a very basic drawing. So first up, see what it says. It says half the number, then 2, half the remaining number, and then 2, half the remaining, and then take 2. Now, if it says there's none left, so if we halve the number of slices and then take 2, and we've got none left, that means that we took away half the remaining number. That was step 1 of this final part. And then we took 2, but because we've already taken half, that must make 2 the other half. And that can be shown here in a very bad drawing of mine, that if this was the number of slices, so that's been cut in a certain number of slices, half was taken, and then out of what was left, 2 slices were taken, 1 and 2, and then they're all gone, which means that there must have been 4 slices left at that point by the time the third person got their go. So if by the time it was the third person's go, if there was 4 slices, that means that we need to double that. So that's 8, and then add another 2 to make 10. Actually, sorry, slightly wrong way around. Have to add 2, which makes 6, double that makes 12, the second person. And then add 2 again to make 14, double that, 28. Is what we started off with, which again confirms what we've gotten. So this shows some of the utility of using Microsoft Excel to solve not just questions like this, but all sorts of questions. This sort of thinking will help you with Excel, and it will help you with maths in general also, given you have the ability to check to see if what your calculations are going to actually be correct. So hopefully you were able to solve these and follow along, and just a little bit of a test to hopefully see if we can figure things out. How about try and solve this for the first question? Instead of being 120 centimeters at the start, make it 200, and how many times you've got to half, how many sips do you need until you can go less than 10 centimeters? So that is the question, the challenge question there. And then the challenge question for this one, how about if instead of 2, it's 4? How many slices must we have started with then? Half, then take 4, half, then take 4, half, then take 4, and there's none left. Well, best of luck with these questions, and yeah, put your answers in the comments and we'll see how we go.